Unacademy. Let's crack it.
हेलो एवरीवन, दिस इज पीयूष। आपको ये पिक्चर याद है? ये पिक्चर 3 साल पुरानी है एंड दिस पिक्चर इज आफ्टर द फेलियर ऑफ चंद्रयान सेकेंड मिशन. You remember it was one of the dream projects of India, but it was so unfortunate and it was bad luck that ultimately it failed. And in this particular picture we can see the chairman of ISRO K7 is literally crying after the failure of it. From there I'll show you one another picture, like this is the Chandrayaan 3rd. And you can see that dedication of ISRO, that within 3 years, like they have really made this project successful, and finally what failures they saw 3 years back, within 3 years they rectified it and finally they did a successful mission. So I would like to take this opportunity to discuss a kind of brief history of ISRO, and I would like to tell you this journey, that journey which is really remarkable, and the way ISRO becomes one of the leading space research organization in the world. And even though there were so many limitations with this country, and even after that, like ISRO has come up with their great successes. And if you really wish to understand the success of this organization, I can show you like couple of pictures to show you, to make you understand that what is the, like what kind of journey it has covered so far. So one picture is taken from 1963 and this second picture is from 2023. So you can see in 1963 one part of the rocket is being carried on a bicycle, right? And this is the picture of 2023 when we have been launching Chandrayaan 3rd. So this is one picture which is like explaining the things by its own. From the picture itself you can understand that what limitations India had in the beginning, like somewhere in 1960s, and from there how come they have come, or how come they have covered this journey. I'll show you another picture to to convey the same idea. This is again part of rocket, right? This is Aryabhat 1 that's being carried in a bullock cart. एक बैलगाड़ी में वो लोग Aryabhat 1 को carry कर रहे हैं. और from here, another picture from 2014, and that's the Mangalyaan, right? So I think these pictures are sufficient enough to tell you that what kind of work ISRO has done so far, and why this particular organization is being recognized as one of the leading space research organization in the world, even though India is a developing country and there are several challenges what India had been facing. But even though this particular organization had been really doing amazing work, like superb work, and that's the reason because of what I just thought of talking about ISRO little bit. So we'll just see the history of ISRO, we'll see the projects of ISRO, we'll see the upcoming projects of ISRO also. So one by one we'll be seeing all of them. But before that, this is the organization which is called as ISRO, that's Indian Space Research Organization, which came into existence in 1969, immediately after the independence of India. But we'll talk more about this particular journey. But before I come to this, let me talk about some important contributions which are made by ISRO so far, and why this particular organization is considered to be so important for us. So ISRO today is world's one of the best space research agency, and in fact if we will talk about the 6th best space research organization, in that case we should take the name of ISRO also, right? The development of NAVIC, the development of NAVIC, this is India's own regional navigation system, because India had been facing problem with respect to the navigation, and our dependency was there on the other countries, or let's say NASA. That's the reason because of what India had to develop it, and finally India came up with this. Then it comes to RISAT, it's radar imaging satellite, for boosting the defense forces surveillance, surveillance need, checking insurgent infiltrations and the anti-terrorist operations. We have just come up with this, right? That's another success of RISAT. Then it comes to Mission Shakti. This is anti-missile satellite that ISRO has developed. Then of course all these achievements are there with this low budget, after this low budget efficiency. So one of the best example that how come ISRO is making all these projects successful with along with this limitations of the financial sort of things and all, right? So if you'll see the Chandrayaan mission, which costed somewhere around $74 million, and if you'll see the similar project of NASA, then in that case the total budget of this project of NASA was $671 million. So you can compare these two figures and you can understand how come with this limited resources, ISRO is undoubtedly like working amazing, like achieving so many things. These are certain important, let's say, successes of ISRO. So I think these successes itself are sufficient to tell you that what are the what kind of organization it is. If we'll see the vision of ISRO, so I think if you think that ISRO is one organization which is precisely dealing with science or let's say scientific things or the scientific achievement, then this is completely wrong. ISRO is that organization which is working for the for the betterment of the mankind, for the development of this country, and that's the reason because of what the moment it comes to discussing the vision of ISRO, in that case we can talk about that it is not only the scientific or the technological vision, rather it can benefit the common man in society, that too in multiple areas, right. So either it is weather forecasting or it is communication or it is education, right, or the tracking of the natural resources are concerned. So you can see that it is actually helping India as a nation and the Indians as well, that too in multiple fields. And in fact, it is one thing which is one achievement of India, which is very much helping India in its basics also, because if we'll talk about India's basics, undoubtedly agriculture. I'm just talking about the beginning. So at the time of at the time of the beginning of India, I must say after the independence, of course we needed to be self-dependent, and that's the reason because of what agriculture also needed some support, some boost, and in fact ISRO was even helping there. These are certain achievements of the visions of ISRO, right. So ISRO's initial years were dedicated to the development of the launch vehicles and the satellites. Of course, they just wanted to go for this development of the launch vehicles, because initially this problem was there, right. So you can see that this is the vision which was under which it started working. Let's come to the formation of this organization. So how come this idea of ISRO came? And in fact, I must tell you that the idea of ISRO appeared immediately after the Indian independence, and it was to some extent we can say result of a very visionary Prime Minister of India, that's called as Jawaharlal Nehru. So when I'll discuss about this period, I hope you all must have studied about this Cold War. So immediately after the Second World War, you all know that Cold War had started. And during this Cold War, what happened? Russia and USSR, these were two countries which were opponent countries, and in fact both the countries had been trying to attract the rest of the countries, or specifically I'll say the third world countries, in their side. But then problem was that India, since it had been following the policy of NAM, right, so it never wanted to go along with either USA or USSR. So this was this period. So first of all, let's see the world context. So in the world context, what happened, in the world context, there was a competition going on between USSR and then USA, and this competition could be noticed in the field of many areas. Of course, it was there in the economic field, it was there in the, let's say, military field, it was even there in the space research area also. And in this particular in this particular context, I can say that Russia had started taking the lead, because it had started launching its satellites much earlier, from 1957 itself, right. So Russia has taken a lead. But then problem was this, that after Russia, of course USSR was also following this, and then the problem was this, that since India wanted to keep itself isolated, that's the reason because of what, India could not take the help from all these countries. That's one thing. The second thing, that India's Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru has literally realized one thing, that without this kind of scientific development, the other things or other achievements also were not possible. This is the reason because of what, he has literally realized it, and this is the reason because of what Nehru brought a scientific policy resolution in the parliament, and through this resolution he just wanted to boost or support the scientific researchers in India, that the science and technology could really help in the development of this nation. So you can really understand the vision of this particular Prime Minister, that when India becomes independence after a colonization of roughly around 200 years, and then you see that India had been struggling with so many problems. I can just tell you one thing, that India at that point of time was even struggling for the food, because India was not even sufficient in the food. That's the reason it had been importing food. So in India, poverty was there, the food crisis was there, like the financial crunches were there, right? And of course, the most important thing, that since in India there was no such organization which could have really created such kind of scientists who could have worked in that. So of course you all realize that there was much technological lackings in this area. This is the reason, because of what somebody imagining something like this itself is a kind of great achievement. But still this person has really imagined this, and then he he took the help of Homi Jahangir Baba, who was a nuclear physicist, and this person and Nehru came together and they had started they have started let's say imagining something, they have started dreaming something, and then this dream is coming into existence, like in form of what? In form of ISRO, but not in the beginning it was ISRO. So basically what happened, with the help of with the help of Homi Jahangir Baba, one department was formed that's called as Department of Atomic Energy, and this Department of Atomic Energy had started taking even the projects for the scientific researchers also, right? And then further in 1962, with the help of Vikram Sarabhai, again a person an astrologist basically and a scientist, like this person, with the help of this person, Indian Committee for Space Research was formed, right? So these are some of the early developments that could be noticed, and because of these efforts, finally INCOSPAR has been formed in 1963. So this is the mother organization, and in fact it went into, let's say some sort of research, and from some sort of research in the space area, and from there they have tried to launch some of the rockets and all. So again I remember one of the early successes of this organization, when in 1963 they launched one satellite called as Nice Apache, that was built by NASA, and it was launched from a church in Thiruvananthapuram. So this was that journey, and in fact the pictures that I have shown you just now, it was from that 1963 episode, and from there, as I told you, that we have covered a long journey, right? So basically you all can see that this was this was the whole situation. But here there are certain other things which have also motivated not only the leaders of India, but at the same time I must tell you that of course the certain conditions were also there. Specifically, I would like to talk about that Sino-China war, Sino-India war. In this Sino-India war, India's defeat was also something which was really motivated, or literally motivated the Indian leaders or Indian scientists to do something in this particular direction, and that's how the whole idea is coming into existence, right? So then finally what happened, 1969, in place of INCOSPAR, in place of INCOSPAR, the real organization that's called as Indian Space Research Organization, that's ISRO, that came into existence under the leadership of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and this is the beginning. And from this beginning you can see that the journey was covered, and in this journey now you can see that one by one they have achieved so many things. So the first achievement in 1975, when ISRO has launched its first satellite that's called as Aryabhat, which is named after the ancient Indian mathematician Aryabhat. It was built by ISRO, Aryabhat, and it was launched by the Soviet Union, because at that point of time India did not have this technology of launching the basically the satellites, and that's the reason because of what it took help from Russia. But then they have decided to prepare their own launching rockets and all. That's the reason because of what ISRO finally successfully launched its first satellite into orbit using the SLV-3. This is the first launching rocket of India in 1980. This satellite was called as Rohini. So this is the first launching rocket which was launched by India, and from here you can see the further developments one after another. So basically this decade 1990s is known for the real success. Why it's known for the real success? Because now the development of PSLV is the most important achievement that could be noticed during this particular period, because now the launching capacity of India became much advanced and the better. This is the success of this, right? So it successfully launched IRS-1A. This is the first of the series of advanced remote sensing satellite that was done in 1995. This success goes on further also. Sorry, yes, sir. Okay, fine, sorry. Okay, so then we move further and we see the other successes. So we have seen that PSLV was the greatest success in greatest success in 90s, and then in like 2000 again India had started coming up, or ISRO had started coming up with several great successes. Okay, so first we see that ISRO started the decade of launching the geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle. This is the next greatest achievement of India, that's called as GSLV, because now it enabled India to launch the heavier or the bigger basically satellites. So this is the greatest success in 2001. In 2008, ISRO launched the Chandrayaan first mission. This is another great success. Another great success. In 2010, we see, like in 2000, the second decade, we see some more successes. So this period witnessed some significant milestone for ISRO. Why? Because the Mars mission, or basically the Mangalyaan, was launched in 2014, right? So this India, by launching Mangalyaan, became the first Asian nation to reach the basically to reach to Mars basically. So this was undoubtedly a great success, and in fact ISRO launched a record 104 satellite in a single mission by using PSLV C-37 in 2017, right? So undoubtedly it was a massive achievement. In the next decade in 2020s, right, as you have seen, ISRO was planning several ambitious missions, including that Gangayaan mission, right? So we will see some more, like through this Gangayaan, now the astronauts had to be sent, or like they're planning to send the astronauts also. So these are certain important successes, right? Some other milestones of the ISRO. Let's see. The first Indian-made sounding rockets was the RH-75, Rohini 75. It was launched by the Tumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station, Kerala. That was in 1967. The weight of it was just 30 kgs, and then after the series of the Rohini sounding rockets were developed by ISRO, and then further they were launched. The first Indian satellite, Aryabhat, that was built by India. It was built by the ISRO and launched with the help of Soviet Union, that we have already seen. The year 1980 marked the launch of Rohini, which was the first satellite to be successfully placed in orbit by SLV-3. This is another important year. We have partially discussed about that. Subsequently, with more efforts, the other rockets were developed by ISRO, such as PSLV. Then further we have seen the GSLV, right? So these are some other important successes that we can talk about, right? ISRO launched the INSET satellite in 1982. This is a kind of, it was the communication satellite. Of course, it made India like self-dependent. That's now named as INSET 1A, which failed in orbit, but the next communication satellite, INSET 1B, was launched in next year only, right? Next year only, 1983. ISRO, who has also launched the first IRS, the remote sensing satellite, in 1988. Further, ISRO launched its first lunar mission, Chandrayaan-1, in 2008. Like 2014, ISRO used an indigenously built cryogenic engine for a GSLV D5 launch of GSAT-14 satellite, for making it one of the only 6 countries in the world to develop a cryogenic engine, cryogenic technology. So this is undoubtedly one of the most important successes of ISRO. It also launched the Mars Orbit Mission, MOM, right, or the Mangalyaan, in 2014. With this, India became the first country to achieve the success in putting a satellite in the Mars orbit, right? In 2017, ISRO created another world record by launching 104 satellites in a single rocket. It launched its heaviest rocket yet through this GSLV, that's called as Mark 3. Okay. India launched Chandrayaan 2. We have already discussed that. Unfortunately, this failed. Then the Chandrayaan program, we have already discussed about the 3 Chandrayaan programs, right? Okay, fine. Then it comes to the Mars orbiter mission. That also we have already discussed. Okay. Now let's see some of the upcoming projects of ISRO. So of course there are so many things which are listed, and let's see some of them. So Aditya, the first Indian observatory class mission to study the solar corona using a solar chronograph, and also the chromosphere using a near UV instrument. So this mission is really one of the most important, or let's say ambitious project of ISRO, right? Then it comes to Gangayaan. So Gangayaan is the orbit vehicle. It is the Indian crewed orbital spacecraft jointly made by ISRO and HAL, intended to the basis of Indian human space flight program. So this is the whole idea. Then it comes to NISAR. NISAR ISRO is basically the synthetic aperture radar. It's called as NISAR. It's a joint project between NASA and ISRO to co-develop and launch a dual frequency synthetic aperture radar satellite to be used for remote sensing. It is notable for being the first dual band radar imaging satellite. Okay. Next is the okay. So Chandrayaan, the Indian Venus orbiter mission. This is also planned. X-ray X-ray polarimeter, right? This X-ray polarimeter satellite is a ISRO's planned space observatory to study the polarization of cosmic X-rays. It's again a very ambitious project of ISRO. Then the lunar project exploration mission. So it's a concept mission by JAXA, is a Japan Space Agency, and ISRO to explore the South Pole region of the moon in 2025. So these are some upcoming projects which are there, and we we believe that ISRO will be very successful in in its upcoming projects. So the best wishes to ISRO, and I would like to congratulate ISRO on its success of Chandrayaan 3rd. So thank you very much.
Unacademy. Let's crack it.